Queensland's Treasurer has set the stage for the October state election, handing down his fifth budget and plunging Queensland into deficit to provide cost of living relief to households. A record $3.7 billion will be spent on new and expanded concessions to try to ease hip pocket pain. Fees and charges will be frozen. $1 billion will go to social and affordable housing. More than $26 billion for the health system, including 700 extra doctors, and $27 billion on infrastructure, including Bruce Highway upgrades and Gold Coast light rail. But with the government spending more money than it earns, Labor's promising to make savings, aiming to return to surplus in 2026.
The Premier striding towards the state election with a big spending budget offering something for everyone.
I said I would listen to Queenslanders every day and deliver for them, and that's what this budget does.
A record $11.2 billion will be spent on concessions next financial year, with $3.7 billion of that on new and expanded cost of living relief. To deliver the pre-election sweeteners, the Treasurer will plunge the state's books into the red.
We make no apology for going into deficit.
The state will end the financial year with a $564 million surplus before going into back-to-back deficits. The coffers will return to surplus in 2026-27.
We have made the deliberate choice to put our budget into deficit to help Queensland households keep their budgets in balance.
Fees and charges will be frozen at a cost of $180 million. It's the latest hip pocket relief measure following the announcement of a trial of 50-cent public transport fares, cheaper car rego, and changes to stamp duty for first home buyers. Tegan and Matt Jarrett have a young daughter and just bought their first home on the Gold Coast. They've welcomed the concessions.
When those bills do come around and there's that reduction, it's going to be extremely helpful, where we can put funds into other things.
While others feel the budget has fallen short.
The biggest pressure on household budgets right now is increasing costs of rent.
An extra 2 million people will call Southeast Queensland home over the next 2 decades. We need to see a long-term plan.
This budget does not address the needs or the concerns of the Queensland business community.
The state is heading towards $172 billion in total debt by 2027-28, which will attract billions of dollars in interest repayments. To curb spending, a savings plan will seek to claw back $3 billion over 4 years across government.
But I can give this assurance, we will not be cutting one job as a consequence.
The state is expected to pocket $10.5 billion from coal royalties, over $1 billion more than previously forecast. The state opposition says it will support the budget, but is critical of projects like the proposed Pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro scheme.
The Treasurer, Cameron Dick, has just said that's fully funded, fully costed. It's not.
The election is now 4.5 months away. By that time, Labor will have been in office for almost 9 years. But the Treasurer's made an extraordinary appeal to voters, asking them to ignore Labor's past record.
The election on the 26th of October is a fight about the future of Queensland. It's not a referendum on the last 9 years. It's about two competing visions for our state.
The opposition gets a chance to outline its vision in a budget reply speech on Thursday. Rachel Stewart, ABC News, Brisbane.
And the Treasurer, Cameron Dick, joins me. Treasurer, is this budget your last, or do you think there are enough sweeteners in there to save the government from an electoral wipeout?
Jess, I'm not concerned about my electoral fortunes. I'm concerned about Queenslanders. And we know many are suffering at the moment under the twin pressures of high interest rates and high inflation. So focusing on what matters to Queensland, which is cost of living relief today, is so important. And that's why we're investing more than $3 billion to help Queenslanders in this budget straight away.
Do you really expect Queenslanders to believe that you did not have one eye on the election when you put this budget together?
I just think when you walk around any street or suburb in Queensland, including my own electorate of Woodridge, if you listen carefully to people, you know how they're struggling under the increased cost of groceries, fuel, interest rates, that's hurting Queenslanders. And so using our fiscal capacity, our budget strength to give back to Queenslanders through electricity rebates, $1,000 there, 20% off rego, almost free public transport. That's what we need to do as a government to get Queenslanders through this difficult time.
You said today the next election is not a referendum on the past 9 years. Why are you so keen for Queenslanders to forget the past?
Well, every election that I've been part of or watched, even as a young man, was about the future of Queensland.
It is also a judgment on your record, though, isn't it? It's a judgment on a government's record.
Well, we've got our fully costed, fully detailed plan out there. David Crisafulli is half-time in the footy game and he's hiding in the sheds and he won't tell people what he wants to do. So that's going to be the choice on the 26th of October. A government that cares for Queensland, investing in cost of living, building Queensland, and an LNP that simply won't be honest with Queensland about what they plan to do.
Most of the cost of living measures that you've announced are temporary. Will you be upfront with voters about that? That, you know, the rego discounts, the electricity rebates, they're only for 12 months, aren't they?
Well, we're putting a number of measures in place because Queenslanders need help now. This is the biggest challenge many people have faced in their lives, and we know next year from all of the economic analysis, interest rates in particular will start coming down, and that will provide significant relief. But when people are struggling now, we need to provide them with that cost of living relief. But when, for example, public transport fares, when that program concludes and if we see increased patronage on our trains and buses and ferries, and we see reduced congestion on the roads, that will encourage any government to continue that sort of program. So we'll look at those investments and see how they roll out and see the benefits for Queensland over time.
But just to be clear, most of those measures are temporary, aren't they?
Well, that's because the pressure on Queensland households is now. That's the reality because of high interest rates and other high inflationary impacts on them. But we anticipate inflation to come down, also interest rates to come off. But where we can provide more support, we will do that. And I've done that in 5 successive budgets now, providing cost of living relief. We'll continue to do that when we need to support Queensland families. It's always been a priority of our Labor government.
Cameron Dick, thank you so much.